All right, welcome back to Developer Roadmaps. In this explainer, we're making the jump from just plain old HTML structure to the fun stuff, CSS style. We're going to focus on one of the most critical parts of any website, typography. Let's dive in and see how we can take full control of our fonts and text with CSS.
So, if you remember our last explainer, we really got the hang of targeting any element on a page. We covered all sorts of CSS selectors, IDs, classes, attributes, you name it.
But, knowing what to select is really only half the battle. Now it's time for the fun part, learning how to actually style those selections. We're going to shift our focus to the CSS properties and values that bring our designs to life.
So this is our blank canvas, just a simple, unstyled paragraph. We're going to use this throughout the explainer, and we'll transform it by applying one CSS property at a time so you can see the direct impact of each change.
Okay, let's kick things off with part 1, building the foundation with fonts. Think of these properties as the absolute core building blocks that define the character and the shape of our text.
So, first things first, we have to choose a typeface. We do that with the font family property. But here's the thing. We don't just list one font. Instead, we create what's called a font stack, which is basically a prioritized list of fonts that acts as a safety net.
So think about it from the browser's perspective. It reads this list from left to right. It's going to try to use Roboto first. If the user doesn't have Roboto, no problem. It just moves on to Helvetica. And if that's not available either, it falls back to a generic sans serif font that every single browser has. And that right there, that's your safety net. Super important. Next up, we control the size with font size. And one of the most straightforward ways to do this is with pixels, or px. This gives you exact pixel-perfect control over how big your text is. But here's the catch with pixels. They can be pretty rigid. They won't scale if a user changes their browser's default font size, which is a huge deal for accessibility. And that's where relative units like rem, em, and percentages come into play. They're flexible, they adapt, and honestly, they're the standard for any modern, responsive web design.
All right, let's quickly run through 3 more foundational properties. Font weight handles the boldness, usually with numbers where 400 is normal and 700 is bold. Font style lets us do things like italic, and font variant can create cool effects like small caps for a unique stylistic touch.
Now, writing all those properties out one by one, man, that can get old fast. This brings us to a really powerful checkpoint on your developer journey, the font shorthand property.
With the shorthand, we can cram multiple values into a single clean line. But you got to get the order right. You can specify style, variant, and weight first, then you must provide the font size. You can optionally add a slash and a line height, and finally, you finish with the font family stack. It's just so much cleaner and more efficient.
Okay, so everything we've talked about so far relies on fonts that are, already on someone's computer. But what if you want something a bit more custom? Well, that brings us to web fonts, which let us expand our library with awesome services like Google Fonts.
And honestly, using a web font is way easier than you might think. It's really just 2 simple steps. First, you import it. You can do this by adding a link tag right into your HTML file. Second, you just use it in your CSS by adding its name to your font family stack. It's pretty much that straightforward.
Okay, perfect. So we've locked in the basic character and shape of our font. Now let's move on to part 2, adding finesse with text styling. These are the properties that control how the text is actually arranged, colored, and decorated.
First up, and maybe the most obvious one, is color. This property sets the color of the text itself. You've got a few options here. You can use simple names like red, you can use hexadecimal codes for really precise control, or you can use RGB values.
Next, let's talk about arranging the text on the page. Text align lets us align it horizontally, left, right, center, or justify. Direction is absolutely essential for supporting different languages, letting us switch between left to right and right to left. And then, text transform gives us quick control over capitalization so we can force text to be uppercase, lowercase, or capitalize each word.
Now, this next one. This is a game changer for readability. It's called line height, and it controls the space between lines of text. Just a little extra space gives the text room to breathe and makes those long paragraphs so much easier on the eyes.
So you're probably wondering, what's a good number to start with? Well, it always depends a little on the font you're using, but a unitless value of around 1.5 or 1.6 is a fantastic, widely used starting point for body text. It just creates a really comfortable reading experience.
And if you want to get really precise, you can. Letter spacing lets you adjust the space between individual characters, which is great for headlines, while word spacing adjusts the space between entire words. Just a heads up, a little goes a long way with these. The text decoration property is all about adding lines to your text. The most common one you'll see is underline for links, but you can also do an overline or a line through for that strike-through effect. You can even get fancy and style the color and type of line. And for our last trick, let's add a little bit of polish with text shadow. A subtle shadow can kind of lift the text right off the page, helping it stand out and improving the visual hierarchy, especially if you have a busy background.
Okay, that was a lot of properties, so let's wrap this up with a really simple way to think about all of them. Let's look at the blueprint for font versus text properties.
Here is the key distinction you absolutely need to remember. All the font properties, they control the typeface itself, its fundamental shape, size, and weight. In contrast, the text properties control the layout and styling of that text after the font has already been defined. Think of it like this. One is the raw material, and the other is how you arrange it.
So we've totally transformed our text. What's next on the roadmap? Well, we're going to expand beyond text and start exploring opacity, backgrounds, and some core color design principles in CSS. It's time to take our styling skills to the next level.
This is Developer Roadmaps. Map your path. Build your career.